Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates. Got busted again,
You
Ren.
did. Second day in a row.
My name is Bryce, too engrossed in the content that we're about to pump out. But as always, I'm joined by my equity mate, Ren. How's it going?
Oh, I'm very good. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yes, caught off guard yesterday.
Yeah.
Caught off guard today.
Yeah. I need you to lift for tomorrow.
The trend, I can either reverse the trend or continue with the trend.
True. All right. Well, I'm going to take control of this episode. So today we're going to talk about a potential merger or a potential acquisition between two companies that you may not think fit together. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of a backstory, and I guess we'll talk about what it means. But let's start with the two companies. Boral.
Yes.
Have you heard of it? I've
heard of Boral.
Seven Group. Have you heard of it?
I have heard of Seven Group.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, why don't you tell us what each of those companies do, and we'll try and figure out how they fit together.
Boral, to the naked eye, you've probably seen the big Boral concrete trucks driving around there in concrete, as well as many other building materials. And Seven West, you may be confused that it's the TV production company, but it's not.
Well done.
It is a holding company for many other companies run by Mr. Kerry Stokes.
Yes.
So do not get confused when you're seeing in the AFR, because it has been in the AFR a lot, this story that we're about to unpack, that Channel 7 is trying to take over Boral.
That is a trap for young players, and I was wondering if you were going to fall into that.
No.
But you weren't.
Yeah,
Good.
So we've got, Kerry Stokes essentially trying to make a play for Boral and add it to his portfolio.
So let's take a step back. Kerry Stokes, one of Australia's wealthiest people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Billionaire.
Who is he?
He's one of Australia's wealthiest people.
So
you go.
Yeah. So he took over Channel 7 out of Christopher Skase's, not estate, but like out of his business that failed and then was in receivership. Anyway, Kerry Stokes took over Channel 7 in the 90s, late 80s or early 90s, and has sort of run it and then has, I guess, acquired a number of other businesses and sort of grown that business. But importantly, as Bryce said, we're not talking about Channel 7 moving into the construction sector here, as well as Seven West, because Channel 7 and the West Australian papers were together in a media business. Seven Group Holdings is, I guess, his sort of private equity arm that he uses to acquire other businesses, was the result of a merger of a couple of different businesses. But yeah, it's Kerry Stokes's acquisition and corporate rating vehicle.
Must be nice.
One day we'll have an equity mates holdings.
Yeah. So it owns 40.2% in Seven West, as you mentioned, Ren, 28.5% in Beach Energy.
Yeah, an oil and gas explorer and producer.
Full ownership of West Track, full ownership of Coates Hire.
Yeah.
And also owns Alight Skies, a supplier of lightning towers, generators, and pumps.
Yeah.
So it loves his construction theme.
Yeah, for people who aren't familiar, West Track is like a heavy equipment dealer.
Yeah.
I think it's like the exclusive dealer for Caterpillar in WA, New South Wales, and ACT, a few states and territories. Fact check me on that though. And then Coates Hire is... Stokes actually brought the two companies together, a merger of Coates and National Hire, and it's the biggest equipment renter in Australia.
Rents. Yeah. I've see them everywhere. And now he's having a play at Boral.
Yes.
So Boral company, as we said, building materials across 17 countries around the world. So a very well-known company here in Australia.
Let's talk about this takeover because it's been in the media a lot recently, and there's a bit of a story behind it that we just thought was pretty interesting. So we just wanted to unpack it. We know there's been some questions in the Equity Mates community about it. So it really starts with Boral and a tough few years. So take us back in time and tell us all about that.
So yeah, you're right, Ren. Couple of tough years for Boral. 6 profit downgrades over the last 2 years, and we know we're middle of reporting season, and we know one thing to look out for in reporting season is continuous downgrades. So not great for shareholders of Boral. Returns being dragged down by their foray into the US, which was led by their former CEO, Mike Kane. But Kane was replaced by Zlatko, a current CEO, and then Seven Group started buying shares.
Yeah, so Seven Group first appears on Boral's share registry in March 2020. COVID lows.
Yes.
Buying shares at like
Classic.
$2, $3.
Yeah.
Share price recovers, as most stocks did post-COVID. And it moved into about the $6 range, and Boral announced it was going to do a buyback.
Yeah.
So, try and buy shares on issue and drive the price up even more.
Yeah.
At this stage, Seven Group's made, 3x their money?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Seven Group continued to build up their stake to owning just shy of a quarter of the company, 23.4% of the company, and was really supportive of Zlatko, the new CEO's strategy of selling the US assets. So after 6 profit downgrades, I think they realized it was time to get out.
Yeah.
So selling the US assets, slashing $300 million in costs, and buying back 10% of the issued shares. So at this stage, seemed like a pretty happy picture.
Yeah. Seemed like it. Then they come in, Ren. Seven Group launch a full-on takeover bid in May 2021, not too long ago. And that's where things started to really escalate. Their initial price per share was $6.50. They then came in raising that to $7.30, $7.40, essentially making it an $8.8 billion bid on Boral.
Now, the important thing to note here is that it was a takeover bid, so it was nominally to take over the whole company, and they would have had to secure financing in the event that they could take over the whole company. But Seven Group only wanted to get a third of the company. That was their original aim, and that was then to increase the amount of board seats they have, and I guess have more control over the direction of the company.
But I think the interesting point about that is you have to do a takeover bid to get that. Yeah, it's some weird rule that you have to come
I think
out.
there's a whole bunch of rules.
Which we're not going to dig into.
No.
But anyway, you're right. They wanted to take a bit more of a tighter hold on the, not tighter hold, but just get involved in the board more. So Seven Group CEO Ryan Stokes was already a board member.
Now that name might not ring a bell, but Ryan Stokes, son of Kerry Stokes.
Yes, son of Kerry Stokes, is a board member at Boral.
Yeah.
So Ryan then essentially started accusing Boral of some pretty significant accusations around management of the company.
And these are all allegations, it's important to stress, but he has, from what was originally a pretty good relationship, and Ryan Stokes was seen as quite constructive on the Boral board. The Seven Group CEO has since come out and alleged that the Boral board has, I guess, acted poorly in selling the US businesses at a loss, rushing the sale of the US businesses. He's criticised them for guaranteeing the employment and long-term incentives of the CEO and CFO. He's criticised them for buying back shares during a blackout period and for failing to disclose material information about the underperformance of Boral Australia. So
relationships starting to I guess sour somewhat.
Yeah, deteriorate.
Yeah, so Seven Group then demand additional board seats and really are now starting to push for a full overhaul of the Australian business, urging a more disciplined approach to the capital management that is going on there.
Yeah, so if we just pause at this point, Seven Group are making a play for the company. There's some accusations being thrown by one board member against the rest of the board. And it's important to note that Boral weren't too happy, clearly.
Yeah.
The Boral board suggested that shareholders reject this takeover bid. They said that independent valuations had put the shares value at between, I think, $8.25 and about $9. So they thought even the $7.40 per share offer price was too low. But also external ratings agencies have criticised, I guess, the bid. So the S&P Global, a credit ratings agency, has said that Boral's BBB credit rating, important to note, BBB is investment grade, but I'm not sure if it gets lower than that. So their credit rating could be downgraded. And some of the quotes that they said were instructive. So from S&P Global, it is not immediately clear whether sufficient conditions exist to insulate Boral from the potentially negative influence of the Seven Group. And then they also said Seven's interests may not be fully aligned with Boral's existing strategy and financial framework. So the Boral board wanted to reject the deal. S&P Global have said that it could threaten their credit rating. But some of the big shareholders sold to Seven Group, Perpetual Investments and Tanara Capital, which together own between 7 and 8% of Boral's stock, both sold. And on the 15th of July, Seven Group announced that it had well overshot its target of a third ownership of the company, and it actually owned a majority. It got over 50%.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. So
Out of nowhere, out of a takeover.
Yeah, but that now means they've got control. They are going to be able to appoint a new board, a new director or chair, I should say,
a new board, and importantly appoint the chair.
Yeah, chair of the board. And 59.2%.
Yeah, so they weren't done yet. Last week, 59.2%. They reported. Honestly, it could be more this week. So that, I guess, means that Seven Group has effective control. This is, I guess, me speculating. Unlikely that they try and take 100% of the shares. They've got control, and it seems to be Kerry Stokes' playbook to just do enough to get control.
Yeah, but he seemed pretty intent, so it'll be interesting. He's gone from wanting just on a third to now having 60%. I mean, why not go the full whole hog?
So Kerry's, this is, when I was prepping for this episode, I was reading about him and some of his previous takeover maneuvers for some of these other companies that we spoke about. He has a reputation of being incredibly patient. And there was speculation that, trying to get the third was just the start, then it would be sort of more and more. But I think this is a well-worn playbook.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's not his first, as we said. He's going to be adding to his portfolio of construction and, I guess, material-based thematic.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier, but he owns Coates Hire outright. He owns Westrack outright. He holds a stake in Beach Energy. So I guess really, you think of Kerry Stokes and you think of Channel 7, you think media, but really his cash cow is construction.
Yeah, absolutely. So it will be interesting to play out. But what does this all mean, Ren? Good for Boral shareholders or not?
Well, not good if you believe that the board's valuation of between $8 and $9 is correct. Then you feel like you're undervalued. Look, I think for Seven Group, I think one thing that we haven't mentioned is that Boral, in selling their US business, is freeing up a lot of cash. They're expected to have surplus capital of $3.6 billion on their balance sheet. And then there's talk of selling their US fly ash business. You would know what fly ash is?
Yeah.
No. Something to do with construction. But that might get another $1.5 billion. So they could have anywhere up to $5 billion surplus capital on their balance sheet, which equates to about $3.20 a share.
Okay.
So for Seven Group, it means they'll be able to reduce their leverage and then I guess direct how that $5 billion of capital is used.
Wow.
But for Boral, it probably is a realignment of, focusing on its core sort of construction materials business and divesting a lot of its other businesses. So obviously we spoke about how they're divesting their US business, but yesterday, Monday, they also announced that they'd sold their Australian lumber business. So it feels like this is a moment where
Strip it back,
cut costs, focus on what we do well, and really it feels like whoever owns the business, Seven or Boral, that's the play.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, looking forward to when Equity Mates sets up their our holding company and we can start making a play in these spaces as well.
True.
But anyway, that brings us to the end of another episode here at Equity Mates. Fascinating story playing out. I wouldn't be surprised if there is more to continue during the week as well. So if you're interested, keep an eye on the news. And if you'd like to continue being part of Equity Mates and keeping an eye on what we're doing, we're across all social channels. equitymates.com is our website, or you can send us an email at contact@equitymates.com as well. But Ren, tomorrow we've got Watchlist Wednesday.
That's it. We're joined by Junbei Liu for tomorrow's episode and Thursday's episode. We've got a double header. Junbei is going to join us for Watchlist Wednesday and share 3 stocks that are on her watch list. And then on Thursday, she's going to talk us through reporting season and how she's approaching it and how she's following her portfolio companies. So make sure you join us tomorrow and Thursday, same time, same place. Can't wait to see you then.